I've had clients who've had Lou Gehrig's disease, dementia, going through chemotherapy, cancer treatments, knee surgeries, knee replacements, hip replacements, back issues. But I do teach also young kids. I teach this one client that I usually teach this morning. She's in her late 70s and her 5-year-old granddaughter joins in too. So, and I have clients in their 30s and 40s and 50s, but I got into private yoga when I was widowed at 30 years old.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is Susan Foxley, and we're going to be talking about yoga and how she works with people that have physical and mental challenges, as well as some of the other modalities that she uses in her teaching. But first, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, thyexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, little bio on myself if you'd like to read that. There's also a YouTube channel. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. Susan Foxley has been studying and teaching yoga for about 30 years, and she has developed some interesting combinations of modalities with her bodywork training and visualization, as well as life coaching. And she's integrated that into her yoga teaching. She also works with people that have physical challenges, cognitive challenges, and spans all ages. It's a really interesting conversation. Susan has dedicated her life to this, and I know you're going to enjoy this episode. This is Susan Foxley. Good morning, Susan. It's so great to see you, as always.
Good morning, Bob. It's so nice to see you too. Really nice.
Audience people, Susan and I are friends, and we've known each other for a number of years. And we're going to talk about yoga today. And one of her passions in life is teaching yoga. She's been doing it for how long, Susan?
I've been doing it since my early 20s for over 3 decades.
So she's really tired. 30 years of yoga. She's worn out. She's in amazing shape, by the way, just so you folks know. She's very limber and very slim and trim and healthy looking. So yoga is working for you, that's for sure.
Thank you, Bob. I love yoga. My spiritual teacher told me in my early 20s, follow your bliss. Joseph Campbell's words, follow your bliss and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, I've heard that. And I've done that in a lot of things, but boy, some days it does feel like work. I mean, it's a little pie in the sky for me as a professional skeptic. I'm glad you accept that whole hog.
Yeah, and there are days, let me tell you, Bob, there are days where it does feel like a lot of work because I do work with people. Yesterday, I worked with my 90-year-old client. I've been teaching her for 22 years, Bob, twice a week, and she's 90 years old, and she's still getting on her yoga mat twice a week, no matter what, even though she's had insomnia and hasn't slept she hasn't gone to bed till 4 or 5 in the morning. She does not skip her yoga because of the benefits that yoga creates for her. Isn't that amazing at 90?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And you do work with a lot of senior citizens and
Yes.
people with physical impairments as part of your specialty.
I work with people. I've had clients who've had Lou Gehrig's disease, dementia, going through chemotherapy, cancer treatments, knee surgeries, knee replacements, hip replacements, back issues. But I do teach also young kids. I teach this one client that I usually teach this morning. She's in her late 70s and her 5-year-old granddaughter joins in too. So, and I have clients in their 30s and 40s and 50s, but I got into private yoga when I was widowed at 30 years old, and I was teaching big yoga classes, and I had to work a schedule where I would be there for my son and work my own hours. And so that's how I fell into I loved big classes. I love the energy and the synergy, but I just fell into private yoga because of my circumstances of being widowed at 30 years old.
Yeah, that's amazing that you were able to take this thing that you were just great at and loved and modify it to your lifestyle. And that's the best thing to me about yoga. You don't need a whole lot of equipment. You don't need any. You just need your body and maybe a comfortable mat and a little bit of knowledge to just start.
Yes, absolutely.
It
was a happy mistake, right, Bob?
Well,
it was a happy mistake to fall into private yoga.
And when you teach, do you teach at your home or do you go to people's houses or both?
Oh, good question. I do both. I have a yoga studio here at home, and I also go into people's homes. I taught a whole family last night. A lot of them go through trauma. So I work with a lot of people that have experienced a lot of trauma and PTSD, and I've incorporated clinical hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming and body work into my yoga practice, because I was working with so many people with chronic pain, Bob, that I found that I did a lot of visualization work, and then I started studying neuroplasticity in the brain, and so I started studying clinical hypnotherapy too. I'm also a body worker. I've been doing body work for many years as well. I'm a trained massage therapist. So that really helps people who are aging. I incorporate body work into the yoga. So they're also getting massages in between cobras, and during Shavasana, they get neck massages and foot massages. So I really spoil my clients.
Wow, that's fantastic. Sometimes I do yoga too, not as much as you do. I started doing it in my early 30s, and I did it for a number of years, and then I don't know what happened. I just stopped. I didn't do it. Life happened, and that went to the wayside, and I've just started it again about 3 months ago. And of course, there's things I can't do yet that I could do back then. But sometimes I'm in like a certain pose, and I can feel a resistance in a certain part of my body that's tighter. And I think to myself, wouldn't it be great if somebody could massage that little part of my back right now that's not as loose as the other side?
Yes.
It's like,
isn't that wonderful, Bob, to have the massage while you're in those poses?
Well, I've never had it, so I just think that it would be nice.
Yes. And our body speaks to us, Bob. So I love Louise Hay's work too. Have you ever read any of Louise Hay's books?
I am very aware of her, and I've seen some of her speaking stuff. I've never read her books, but I know she helped a lot of people over a long time.
And she has this book, How to Heal Your Life. And so I look up different issues, like bladder issues really mean that you're like literally pissed off, or lower back problems, feeling like you don't have enough support in the world. Or I was working with some clients who had so many issues with their shoulders because we feel like we have to keep the world on our shoulders. Or if you have neck pain, someone in your life is a pain in the neck, or you have a pain in your back, someone's a pain in your back. And guilt or toes have to do with the details in your life. You feel like you're overwhelmed with too many details. So you start having toe issues. And it's kind of fun to look that stuff up, whether it's true or not. I don't know, but it makes sense to me that your body is talking to you. And I love yoga, Bob, because I spend 90% of my day from the neck up. And I love dropping down into my body just to listen to my body, because I'm a big thinker. I'm always thinking. So for me to instead of being a human doing and a human going, it gets me into being a human being.
Well, that's interesting you would say that, because when I started doing it in my 30s, many years ago, the thing that I got that I really got from it more than almost anything was the fact that I was able to learn how to meditate, because the guy that I was taking the classes from did long meditations at the end. Some places don't. Some of the big classes, you do the poses and it's a quick 5-minute sort of recentering and all that. But this guy, he would really do like a whole meditation thing. And that's where I learned how to do that, and to shut my mind off. And boy, what a gift that is. It's a little bit, takes about 10 minutes to really get there for me to turn off the, what do you call it? The monkey mind, the chatter.
Yes.
And that's a real valuable piece of it, in addition to, how your body feels and the discharge of pent up energy in different parts.
Actually, yoga is really good so you can sit for long periods of time in meditation. I think that was one of the reasons for all that movement, is so that we can sit in lotus pose for an hour or 2 hours or even 3 hours, being pain-free. So I love the movement, the moving, yoga is a moving meditation. So it's just that flow and getting into the breath. And so often, Bob, I don't know about you, but even this morning I was noticing, Susan, you're not even breathing. Here I am, a yoga teacher. I'm like a shoe shiner with no shoes. I have to remember to breathe and take big breaths. And I just love yoga just to remind myself to get back. And I over and over again have to remind myself to breathe. Often I just hold my breath. So I love that opportunity of that that moving meditation. And I love motion is lotion. And if you rest, you rust.
I had a great experience yesterday after the class I took. I was sitting in the locker room after the shower I took, and I was talking to this guy, and he tells me that he was diagnosed as a young kid with scoliosis, and they wanted to do these major surgeries. It was like breaking ribs and realigning things and putting screws in and all this stuff. And they didn't do it because he was a kid, and he just, and he has no issues whatsoever in terms of his scoliosis anymore because of yoga. He goes, it changed everything. He goes, I went to doctors, I went to, body workers, I went to, he goes, I did every possible sort of thing. He goes, this is the only thing that worked.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I guess it was a
What
fairly
a
serious level of scoliosis. I guess they like to do surgery, whatever. I think he said 40%, and he was at 60% of curvature. I don't know I don't know anything about the technical stuff, but it was an amazing thing to talk to this guy, because it changed his entire life. And, you'd never know to look at the guy that he had anything. He just seemed like a, very vibrant guy.
That's incredible. I know Mr. Iyengar, they say some of the sickest people can become the healthiest through contrast. We learn, we're so unhealthy, so we find these modalities. And I was in India. I haven't studied with Mr. Iyengar, but I studied in India with Patabi Joyce in my early 20s. And there's 3 teachers that were really transform yoga, which is Mr. Iyengar and Desika Char and Patabi Joyce. And they were lineages of Krishnamacharya. And I studied with Patabi Joyce in India, and they kept the poses. They don't use props like Mr. Iyengar. But anyhow, I studied in India, and people find yoga because of issues like scoliosis or trying to quiet the mind or the mental chatter or anxiety or whatever that is.
It sort of handles every type of physical and mental situation all in one practice. which is pretty great. I mean, there's strength training, there's flexibility, which to me, as somebody who's almost 70 years old, I really appreciate flexibility at this point. I don't want to get all tight, and also the breathing and the slowing down of the mind is really important too. I find that the breathing actually, whether I can do a pose or not do a pose, my ego goes, yeah, I want to be able to do what that guy's doing or that woman's doing. That, I like to be that flexible competitively, but I try to shut that down and just get into the breath part of it. So I really appreciate what that does, because like you were saying, I have to remember to breathe.
Yes.
I do that too. Sometimes when I'm really thinking, I'll gulp a big thing of air to get like extra oxygen. I'm not aware of this when it's going on, and then I realize I'm holding my breath. I'm actually literally holding my breath because I'm thinking so hard. It's really it's strange, that obviously I'm getting something mentally by doing that at first. But the breath part is probably the hardest to remember in a sense, because it's continuous.
Absolutely. And that's so true. And it's so much easier. I know for me and for many of my students, it's easier to exhale than to inhale. And I think for a lot of us, it's so much easier to give rather than to receive, to really give to ourselves that self-love, and to really take that big, deep inhale and really let it in, really let the self-love in, the self-care, and saturating our cells and our organs and our tissues and our bones with that beautiful, delicious oxygen. And I love what you talked about competition in yoga, because it's so funny. Yoga can be very competitive, and it's really about just, it's an inside job. And I always say less is more. Because when I know for me, if I'm competing or someone else, my students are competing, that's when injuries happen. And it's just a gradual thing. And it's just like watching a rose blossom. You don't want to pull those petals open too soon, or you destroy the rose. And it's like getting on a yoga mat and wanting to put your foot behind your head on the first day of yoga. You're going to rip your groin muscles if you want to try to put your foot behind your head the first day of yoga. And it's a process, and just breathing and being gentle with yourself and kind and slow. And I always say less is more, and there's no hurry. If it's important, it's not urgent. And if it's urgent, it's not important. And if you rush into something, you're going to get injured. So, and it's a lifetime practice. It's a lifetime practice. So I teach yoga on TV in Santa Monica every morning, and we have chair yoga, we have floor yoga, we have bed yoga. I even have a bed yoga book that I came out with for my clients who could not get out of bed. It's called the Foxley Fix.
Foxley Fix. Let me read the rest of it. The little instruction book of essential yoga poses by Susan Foxley. And there's photos of laying down yoga and chair and all that kind of stuff.
It's more reclining yoga for people who can't get out of bed. So it's for a lot of my clients who can't get out of bed. Mm-hmm. And for people that also, I was in Desert Hot Springs this weekend, and I was in the hot springs with some women from, they were from South Dakota, Wisconsin. And they said, Susan, we just don't like exercising. We can't stand it. We don't like it. And I said, well, just do some of my bed yoga, 3 times a week in your bed. I do these poses actually with my husband in bed, and they're just gentle. And my husband has a little bit of stuff going on with his hips, and he loves doing these poses. They really help his hips, and it's reclining, it's relaxing. You can do it in your bed, you can do it on the floor, and it's better to just do it 3 times a week for 20 minutes than no yoga and just go years without it and then get on your mat. But just less is more. Life doesn't have to be a race. And just really being gentle with ourselves, and just less is more, and really just getting on your mat and doing a little bit every day or 3 times a week.
Well, I like to hear that because it's, it's that all or nothing attitude is always turns to nothing.
That's exactly right, Bob.
Yeah.
That's it. And as I get older, sometimes my yoga practice is just 20 minutes. Sometimes it's a half an hour. When I was young, it was like 3 hours. So just whatever I can fit in. I also love the Tibetan rites. Anyone listening out there, Google the Tibetan rites, and they take 10 minutes a day, and they're incredible. They're anti-aging. And I have some Tibetan rites on my TV show. I did a series of Tibetan rites and my own version. But if I don't have time to do yoga, I just do Tibetan rites, which are yoga poses done rapidly in the morning for energy. And I also love headstands. Headstands are really good for any kind of, to get blood flow to the brain. It's supposed to help you with preventing dementia or Alzheimer's. And headstands are the king of all yoga poses. They're good. It's good for your lymphatic system, your endocrine system, your digestive system. And I use a feet up for my clients, which is a thing that keeps the neck safe. But getting upside down, my 90-year-old client, she does a headstand every time she does yoga. She gets upside down because she knows of the benefits of headstand. Shoulder stand are good. Shoulder stand is good to do before you go to bed. It's calming and it's soothing. You can just elevate your legs and it works your immune system. It calms down your mind. It ceases mental chatter. So elevating your legs or doing a modified shoulder stand is great. Forward bends are calming for the mind. Back bends are energizing. So the Tibetan rites are mainly back bends, but you can do forward bends at night. When I'm watching Netflix at night, I get on the floor with my yoga mat and I stretch. I do a few pigeons. I do a few forward bends, and just, I get on my mat on the floor every day. And I tell my clients to just sit on the floor because our bodies aren't made for Western furniture. As I'm talking to you right now, I'm sitting cross-legged because we're not meant for Western furniture. Our hips we're supposed to be on the floor to keep that flexibility. Otherwise, if we are always in cars driving or on chairs, we won't be able to get on the floor. Some of my clients, I need 2 chairs with their arms and they can't sit on the floor. And that's so important, the flexibility in the hips to be able to sit on the floor.
Yeah, that's probably my tightest areas, my hip flexors, particularly on one side. One side much more than the other, and it bothers me. I want both to be very close to the same.
Right. Well, we all have asymmetry, Bob. That drives asymmetry. Me crazy. Yeah. We all have asymmetry. All my right side has issues. The right is the masculine, by the way, and the left is the feminine. So I have a lot of issues with my right shoulder, my right hip, my right knee. I had issues with, losing my husband and just a lot of men in my life. I had a lot of issues. So my right side's a little wackadoodle.
Okay. I want to ask you about the pigeon pose because I haven't asked any of the. Oh, I want to say this first. I had this yoga instructor the other day, and she said the strongest person in the room is the calmest person in the room. And I thought, I like that.
Oh, that is beautiful, yeah, Bob.
I wanted to share that one with you because I made me feel pretty good because I was calm at the moment, at that moment.
Oh, I love that. Bob, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Okay, so pigeon pose, if for those who don't know what that is, you have you put one leg in front of you at a right angle, correct? And then you put the other leg back.
And you're on your belly.
And you're on your belly and you're leaning forward. Now, I cannot lean on my right side. Is it more important to do the right angle, or if you can lean all the way over and your leg is sort of in a little bit at, let's say, 75 degrees instead of 90, but you can actually lay down over the top of your leg? Which is more important, the right angle or being able to, does it matter?
To be able, I love bringing the heel towards the pubic bone and making it easier on you and leaning forward. So definitely bringing, yes, I like the idea of not having to do it completely at a right angle. And most of my clients have knee issues, Bob, so I don't put them in pigeon. I put them in reclining pigeon, threading the needle. So they're lying down on their back.
Yeah, like a figure
And-
4, I guess they call it also.
Yeah. And threading the needle is because if you have knee pain and you're doing pigeon, forget it. It's too dangerous.
Right.
So I have to say that I'd say about 75% of my clients, I do not put in pigeon ever. I do reclining pigeon for them.
And the other thing, so you don't hurt your knees, if you, I can tell the difference when I do it, is bend the foot toward the shin. Flex it toward the shin so it takes the pressure off the knee rather than having it straight or forward. It's just
extending through the Achilles tendon and flexing your foot is so important for the knee too. And my mission statement is I want to relieve people of mental, physical, emotional pain, one person at a time. There's nothing worse for me than I have such empathy for people with physical pain or emotional pain. And so for me, that's my goal. When I come in to see a client, I have a bag of tools, bag of tricks to try to get them out of chronic pain, whether it's, doing body work with them, a yoga pose with them, doing some visualization and some prayer work with some clinical hypnosis or some neuro-linguistic programming, or even emotional freedom technique, doing tapping with them. And so I use all kinds of different modalities because there's nothing worse than, I guess I'm a fixer, I'm a fixer. I love fixing people, which is really just my ego because it's really, I don't really fix people, but I try to be a conduit or a channel for my higher power, having my higher power work through me to try to help alleviate some pain and suffering, because I don't like pain and suffering. I've experienced the dark night of the soul, as all of us have. I know, I'm positive you have, Bob, and most of us on this planet have experienced the dark night of the soul. And if I can help bring some light into someone's day, that gives me so much satisfaction. And as you know, when we give, we're really receiving tenfold back.
It's nice to be able to assist somebody in their own healing, I guess, and that's really what you're doing. It's we don't we don't really fix other people, but we can assist them in fixing or changing things that aren't working.
And I love how you put, assisting people in their own healing. That's beautiful, because they have to, it's for people who want it, not people who need it. So my lesson is not to give unsolicited advice, and it's just for people who want it, not need it, and mind my own business and only help people that want the help. And I also love the acronym. If you take the word illness, and take I out of the word illness and put we, you get wellness. And so when you're with other people, it really helps kind of change the narrative, because we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day. And for me, I might have more than that, maybe 120,000 thoughts in one day. And most of those actually are the same thoughts that we had yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. So as I work with people, we get into new thoughts, which will go into new feelings, which will go into new choices and new behaviors and new actions and hopefully new results.
Well, it's an interesting thing, because when that everything begins with a thought. Everything.
Yes.
So, and we think as human beings that if I'm thinking it, it must be right because I thought it, and I'm using evidence around me to come up with this thought in my experience. And it isn't necessarily true, because the evidence may be false evidence, and what you've been taught may not be accurate either. So there is a way to sort of check that by talking to other people and seeing what's, I'm not saying give up your own personal strength and your personal attitude about life, but be open. For me, I have to be open to not have contempt before I look at something.
most of us, it's those limiting beliefs that we inherited from our caregivers as children, right? And to unpack those limiting beliefs and where did I get that story of I'm not enough, or it'll never work out for me, or life is difficult, or life, whatever that limiting belief is, I have to unpack that for myself and erase and replace it with something more positive. And the quickest way for me to hack into happiness is through gratitude and changing my thoughts into gratitude. And that really seems to help me. I feel so blessed to work with people that have these issues because I get to be of service, first of all, and be of service and get out of myself, but also it keeps my life in perspective, because I'm going to be aging too. At some point, I'm going to have issues. As we get older, we only have so much tread on our tires. So at some point, I have arthritis in my right knee. As we age, our parts kind of slowly break down. So it's about having compassion for myself and compassion for others, right?
Yeah, I can't believe I'm going to actually get so old that I won't be here anymore.
Wow, Bob, isn't that something? Isn't that something?
I understand. Yeah, and when I look around, I go, "Oh yeah, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die," but not me. It's never happened yet, so why would it?
Right. And what legacy do you want to leave behind, Bob? What footprints do you want to leave behind on the planet? And hopefully, your beautiful podcasts that you do and all these beautiful interviews will be an incredible legacy that you'll leave behind. Right?
Maybe, but I won't know it because I won't be around.
That's right.
So, do I really give a shit? I kind of do, a little bit. Not as much as probably others who want. Here's an interesting, this idea of immortality, that legacy is part of that. Like human beings, we're in denial of the fact that we're going to die. I was just mentioning that. So how do we become immortal? We have some sort of a thing that we leave, a memory, a legacy, something where we feel like we meant something to people and that we're important. That's good stuff, but it also drives some behaviors that maybe aren't so great. I want to have giant buildings with my name on it.
Oh, yes.
And I'm gonna conquer countries, and I'm gonna be the richest person in the world. I don't care who I have to screw over to do it. So there's a lot of that this idea of a legacy can get pretty warped, And if your legacy is what a great compassionate person who helped a lot of people, that seems worthwhile to me.
Ego can get carried away. And what can I leave behind to serve my grandiosity and feed my ego and all that stuff? That's a very good point.
There's a great thing that I read a long time ago. I don't know if it was a Buddhist thing or whatever. It was talking about if you look at life as a smooth lake, smooth body of water, and somebody dies, and if they're really important a person, or if they're not that important of a person, you throw a pebble into the water and it ripples and it quickly gets smooth again. And if they're really important, you throw a big boulder in there, and the waves are bigger and they last longer, but eventually, fairly quickly, the lake is smooth again. The life thing is smooth, and the impact, while it might last bigger with the boulder, is not, it doesn't really have anything to do with the long-term experience of the living life force.
Beautiful. I like that, Bob.
It's a nice really ego smashing kind of a analogy. And I thought that was really great, to not take yourself so seriously and have self-importance that's way beyond what's real.
Now, do you believe in reincarnation, Bob?
Ooh, good question. Well, I think I've been here before. I'll say that. So I don't know if you want to call that reincarnation. I just have always known that I've been here before. So I don't know in what form necessarily. I've done some past life regression stuff, and I've had experiences in that. Like I say, I'm open to all kinds of stuff. I don't have any cognitive, I don't have any actual, proof of it other than what I feel is true. But I do feel that I've been here before.
Yeah, I believe I feel like, and that gives me some solace, whether I've been here or not. It gives me some solace to know that I will see my loved ones again. I like the analogy. This is one pearl of many pearls. So this is a string of pearls, and this is just one lifetime of many pearls. And I used to joke, I was telling my friend that her brother passed away this week, and she's having a difficult time. And we were talking about reincarnation. And I said, when my husband passed, I used to take my son for walks. He was 2.5 and 3 years old. And I used to say, your dad could be in that stroller. Your dad could be in that stroller.
Oh.
And then we were just, and just wearing life loosely. And we used to write balloons, I love you, Dad, on balloons. And we would, send it up to heaven. And we are all going to the same place, and we are all human beings having we're spiritual beings having a human experience here. And this is really my earth suit. This is my earth suit in this lifetime, and I'll get another earth suit in the next lifetime. And that seems to give me a little bit of solace. Definitely.
Well, there's a comfort in thinking that we're eternal in some way. That all the atoms have been here and always will be here and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
It's great stuff that's sort of coming around in the scientific world now. So they're kind of meeting. The spiritual world and scientific world seem to be connecting in a way that's, all ever evolving, but reaffirming each other's sort of point of view, which I like that. That's comforting also. Otherwise, it's just sort of like random chaos,
isn't it?
And that
but it all has a
that
purpose.
doesn't feel true to me, though. It's never, I think chaos does exist because so does order, but I think that there's more of something. I don't know. I feel that there's more of something that is I don't know, what do you call it? Divine intelligence, something like that.
I love, what is it? Synchronicity is God's way of remaining anonymous. Synchronicity. I'll give you an example. So I went to University of San Francisco and decided to move to Maui. And so I moved to Maui from San Francisco, and someone told me to go to Paia and go into this health food store and look on the bulletin board for places to rent. Well, as soon as I landed in Maui, I went to this health food store to look at cottages. That I found a little cottage for rent, and I locked my keys in the car. This is my first day of getting there. And this guy was meditating up in Makawao, and the spirit told him to come down to the health food store. And as I realized I locked my keys in my rental car, this guy pulled up next to me, and I said, oh, no, I locked my keys in my car. He said, I have one of those sliders he got the keys out for me. And he said, I came here from San Francisco to do yoga and hang out. He said, oh, my girlfriend goes to this yoga barn tomorrow morning. Why don't you spend the night with us, and she'll take you to this yoga barn? So I went and spent the night with these people as soon as I landed in Maui, and I spent the night there, and I went to this yoga barn, and I walked in, and it was like I had come home. I was in my early 20s, and it was this, she was the first person to bring Ashtanga yoga from India, Nancy Gilgoff. And I walked in, and I was home. I felt like I'd known all these people my whole life. This is the yoga I had always been seeking. Before I was doing Iyengar yoga, my identical twin sister brought me to my first Iyengar class in college, and that's how I was turned on to yoga. And then so I walked into this yoga bar, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm home. I'm home. And I started doing Ashtanga yoga 6 days a week. And then I went to India to study with Patabi Joyce, and it was just it was divine intervention. And that's why I love traveling too, because when you travel, you can see all these incredible miracles and magic that because our days are not as planned, and we can see the synchronicity and the miracles as we travel through the world. But isn't that a cool story?
I love that story, because this thing that seemed like an awful thing, like I locked my keys in the car, which I don't think you can do anymore with newer cars, but back in those days, you locked your keys in your car, bad thing on the surface. Guy shows up, has a thing to help you, and it catapults you into this whole new direction, all this good stuff. So something was orchestrating that.
Yes.
You know?
But I love that.
Yeah, can you give me some examples of some people that you've worked with where you've seen really enormous changes, either physically or emotionally, or in any because of the work, the people that were really stuck or really in a lot of just anything. I love stories, and I always like anecdotal things like that.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so oh my gosh, I have so many stories. I love this. I worked with a Holocaust survivor for about 15 years, and I worked with her, and she was obsessed with yoga. She loved yoga. I'd see her twice a week, and she never missed her yoga. And she just loved dropping down to her body and being really quiet and being really present, and just dropping down into her toes, spreading her fingers, getting into her breath, being really present and really mindful in her legs, in her torso, in her heart, and just really being present and fully grounded and very quiet and very peaceful, in spite of having a husband that had dementia for many years, living in the house. And it was just created such peace and solace for her every day. It was like it was her medicine. And so it was just nothing really mind-boggling or a breakthrough, but that was really, really incredible. And then I have another client of mine. His wife hired me because he had chronic negative thinking. So, and she said, Susan, please work with him because he's so critical and he's so negative. And so we worked together, and he's just delightful, and he's happy, and he's healthy, and he doesn't shuffle anymore when he walks, and he just wears life like a loose garment, and he laughs, and he's more playful, and he's in his 80s and just loves his life. He just loves his life. So that's a beautiful story.
Wow,
and,
I love
aren't
that.
those
Let
lovely?
me ask you something. What was the negativity coming from? Did you ever get into that?
It's a habit that he inherited from his mother. So
Okay.
as we know from hypnosis, that a lot of what we do is memorized from our childhood, from the ages of 1 to 7. So we're under hypnosis from the ages of 1 to 7. We're actually under theta waves from 1 to 7. So during our practice, we unwire, unfire, rewire, and refire new thoughts, new feelings, new choices, new actions. And then we start to master our thoughts and master our feelings. And it's just through repetition and imagination and erasing and replacing. And it's just being reminded that I can choose a new thought, just being reminded that I can focus on the things that are going well rather than the things that are going wrong, and being reminded that I can feed the good wolf rather than the bad wolf, that Indian parable, that whatever wolf I feed gets bigger. So I'm going to feed the good wolf rather than the bad wolf.
Wow, that's amazing that he was able to do that. I mean, I feel like that's my basic life obstacle is changing my thinking.
Oh, and we can do it. And I have my clients wear a rubber band around the wrist, and they have to snap it if they complain, gossip, self-deprecate, judge themselves or judge others. And they have to literally snap out of it, snap the rubber band, and erase and replace. We can't have a positive and negative thought at the same time. it doesn't work that way. You got to either choose a positive or a negative thought. So we just crowd out the negative thoughts with positive thoughts. We just crowd it out. So, and just keep repetition is the mother of genius, as Zig Ziglar says.
You know, I did a Zig Ziglar workbook about 30 plus years ago. It changed my life.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know he had workbooks. I'm going to have to look into that.
It was,
Bob.
yeah, it was a really, and the premise was very simple. It was, you write down your short, medium, and long-term goals, but then you've got to actually do work on what are the things I need to do to reach this, let's say, medium-term goal. Who are the people I need to contact and learn these things from? That was the part that I was really not great at, because I just felt like I had to do it, quote, myself. That was a belief. That was, I don't know where I got the belief, but I had it. And I thought, oh, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to find people that know more than you and learn from them and ask. I guess asking was the hardest part. And so it forced you to draw the target and the way to hit the target, because you can't hit a target unless you draw the target first. So first, I guess the hardest part was and I'm going to use the word admitting that I wanted something I didn't have, because to me that was a weakness. It's like, well, I want to, let's just pick something. I want to own a house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not going to tell anybody I don't have what I want right now.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you say it, well, I would like a house. So, what's my short-term goal is to start looking and seeing what houses cost and how people buy houses, how they do that. The medium goal is to start to save a certain amount of money, to keep thinking about wanting the house, and then the long-term goal is to buy the house and to get it. And that I'm truncating all this, but to admit to myself that I wanted something out loud, and talk about it was actually now that I'm thinking about it, that was the hardest part, because it felt like saying that made me weak in some way. I want this thing. I don't have it. So I'm somehow a failure, even though I haven't tried to even get it yet. It doesn't make any sense, but it's a spinning thing in the head that made no sense to me. And until I wrote it all down and realized, oh, this is how people do it. They actually lay it out and think about it, and then take steps to get it. It doesn't just happen because you're a nice guy.
Beautiful, Bob. I really like that. Like sitting down and what are the steps that I need to take to get it, that it's not going to just be hocus pocus focus. You just have to, there's some steps, and you have to get some mentors and ask for help and what do I need to get there? And it's not going to be instant coffee. It's going to take a while.
Right. And it's really about taking responsibility for your own future. And taking responsibility is not that much fun sometimes, especially when you're doing it and it's not working yet. And then you think, well, what's the point? I'm doing this and it's going too slow, and I'm not getting the things that I said I wanted. Now, not only am I not getting it, but I'm working hard toward not getting it. Now I'm even more embarrassed because it's not happening. But I guess, the idea is to keep the focus and the work on the thing, and I just picked a material thing. There's also, lots of other types of things that we want, relationships and a job that's satisfying, and good friends. I mean, there's a lot and good health. That's another one.
Yes. I write a thank you list every morning as if I already have it. And so I write a thank you list, and then I close my eyes and use my imagination and assume that my wish is already fulfilled. that my clients that wish to have babies are already pregnant, or my clients that are suffering from lower back pain or dancing around with their grandchildren around the house, and I actually visualize that. I actually close my eyes and envision my clients healthy, happy, and whole, dancing and laughing. My favorite Bible saying is, a merry heart doeth good like medicine, and a broken spirit drieth up the bones.
Anybody get pregnant during your
Yes, actually, yes.
I like to hear that.
Yeah,
Huh?
weddings and pregnancy too, and weddings.
Yeah,
Isn't that great?
it really is. Boy, that must feel good to know somebody's getting something that powerful. That's really.
Oh, it's beautiful. Every thought is a prayer. Every thought is a prayer. So knowing that every thought is a seed in your garden. So really, really doing that work, watching our thoughts and planting those positive thoughts in our garden. So important. And we can act ourselves into right thinking, as we've heard about, right? Or we can think ourselves into right action. And that's why yoga is so good, because we can act ourselves into right thinking. We may not feel like getting on our yoga mat, but for me, I always feel better after a yoga session. It's like acting ourselves into right thinking. And I always feel more delicious, more yummy, more open, more calm, more peaceful after yoga. Always, always, always.
Well,
Really.
you're very inspiring to talk to. I didn't realize you did all those other types of modalities. So you really incorporate a lot of stuff. What if somebody what if somebody wants to get a hold of you, maybe even needs to get a hold of you, is inspired by our little talk? How do you get a hold of Susan Foxley and her book? Let's recap.
Sure, Bob. Well, you can go to susanfoxley.com, and I've written 4 books. This is my last book that came out during the pandemic, for people that can't get out of bed, or they can do it on the floor. And it's for anybody at any age, the Foxley Fix. But I've written a few other books that you will love. And my YouTube channel has all my TV shows on there. So you'll see desk job yoga, you'll see Netflix yoga, you'll see my sequence that I do when I watch Netflix, and you'll see my students on there. You'll see my 80 and 90-year-old clients on my TV station. You'll see even my 5-year-old client on there too. So I'm teaching on channel 16 every morning. So subscribe to my YouTube channel. Feel free to email me at Susan@foxleyfitness.com, or just you can see me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I write weekly blogs that are really phenomenal. So definitely go read my blogs. They're really inspirational. My next blog is about the 4 horsemen of apocalypse, and the four things you know when you're headed towards divorce or a breakup, and the 4 things that the 4 horsemen by Dr. Gottman are criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. So, and I give you some tools on how to be less critical in your relationship, less defensive, and contempt is really not good. That's usually a pretty high sign of divorce or breakup, and stonewalling is no good. And then I also love one other blog that I wrote on Dr. Gottman's happy marriages. He found that over a 20-year period that for happy marriages, 5 positives for every 1 negative. So I always say to my clients, when you insult yourself, say 5 positives after that. If you insult your children, 5 positives after that. If you insult your husband, 5 positives after that. Learning how to master positivity really also helps your marriage and helps your relationship with our children and our friends and our neighbors, and especially ourselves. We are so critical of ourselves. So saying 5 positives after 1 negative. And then one more thing is another blog that I'll be writing is they did a 65-year Harvard study on longevity. And it wasn't that you had more money or you're eating more broccoli or more kale. It was about community, and having community builds immunity. So really having that support system. Who do you call at 3 a.m. if you are afraid, or who do you call when you're scared out of your wits and worried? And and marinating in negativity. So anyhow, I have great blogs anyhow. So feel free to go to SusanFoxley.com and read my great blogs.
Oh, wow. There's a lot of information coming out of Susan Foxley because she's dedicated her whole life to being somebody that is an explorer and somebody who wants to help other folks and herself. You've done it all, and you're continuing.
Always learning and growing. I'm always making mistakes. I make mistakes daily. I fall on my sword daily. There's many things that try, life keeps you humble for sure. So thanks, Bob.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate it, and have a beautiful day. And thank you for being on the show. It means a lot to me.
Thank you. Love you, Bob. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Exploding Human. Check out the website, theexplodinghuman.com, the YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. And once again, big thanks to Susan Foxley. You can check her out at susanfoxley.com, and that will lead you to all of her books and blogs and everything else that is Susan Foxley. Enjoy your day. Thank you. Bye.